thinking they just don't get it, or search for health advice online but you can't understand it? Felt unheard? You're not alone, and you found your solution with Health Hour. Every Saturday at 11 a.m. This is your space where Caribbean and African healthcare professionals speak about health with a focus on Black people. We tackle the topics that keep you up at night: mental health, chronic conditions, preventive care, sexual health, men's health, women's health, heart disease, and much more. All with the cultural context that matters, because our Black doctors understand the unique challenges we face. Here is what you can expect: real talk from doctors who look like you and get it, lived experience testimonies, practical advice, illness prevention and management tips, and a space of understanding without judgment. You also get to ask questions. Your questions drive the conversation. Health Hour, where community meets Black health expertise.
Hello and good morning. Good morning. Today's the 6th of June, 2026, and it's a lovely summer's day outside. Today, our topic is strong minds, open hearts, and it focuses on navigating mental health for boys and young men. We will have presenting today two excellent presenters, Dr. Ayo Olatoye and Samson Owolabi. Samson brings over 18 years of experience in the community and youth workspace, specifically working with young Black adults. Currently, he is group lead at mental health charity 42nd Street, looking after a young Black men's group called Jet 42, which is a weekly peer support group for young Black and mixed race men aged 16 to 25. Dr. Ayo, on the other hand, is very well known to us. He's a transformational mindset coach and founder of Master Builder, a platform dedicated to empowering individuals to break through mental barriers and achieve personal mastery. With a background in both clinical healthcare and organizational leadership, Dr. Ayo has spent over a decade honing its experience in stress management, burnout prevention, and mindset transformation. I think we've got two excellent presenters, and I shall hand over the floor to them. All of this is particularly focused on helping our young Black men to make the transition from adolescence and pre-adulthood into adulthood so that they can function best and reach their true potential. Right. Doctor and Samson, it's over to you now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Dr. Sapong. Thank you for the introduction. It's an honor for me to present with my brother, Samson, and we're going to be talking to you guys about this topic. It's so for me, it's personal because I have a 14-year-old son, and parenting and being a father and watching him grow is the greatest honor of my life. But it's also something that I want to take seriously and make sure that I'm doing everything I can do to guide him to be a man who maybe doesn't have to struggle with some of the same things that I struggled with and growing up. And again, I'm so grateful for my brother Samson and his wealth of experience. So we're going to start. Let me know. I'm going to share my screen, and you guys can let me know. Can I get a thumbs up so everybody can see?
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so strong minds, open hearts. The first thing I want to talk about is that from a health point of view, you've probably heard me say this before. I think true health is an integration and balance of body, soul, and spirit. So there's no point just talking about physical health if mentally and emotionally we're struggling and spiritually we're not healthy. And one of these things in isolation isn't true health. Have you ever noticed where you feel tired or you feel sad and you don't want to pray. How are these things related? Or you may feel spiritually energized and therefore you can do more physical activity. It's because you're three parts. You're a body, you're a soul, and you're a spirit. And this is a conversation about soul, mind, mental. Why is it important? Why do we have this conversation at all? Well, the data is clear. It is a crisis, and I don't mean that word just for the sake of hyperbole. UK men account for 3 in 4 suicide deaths. 75% of all suicides are because of men. 1 in 6 young people aged 16 to 24 have had a probable mental health disorder. Boys are 3 times less likely than girls to seek help for emotional distress, and suicide is the leading cause of death for males aged 10 to 30. And I'm sorry to, start all guns blazing, but I think it's important for us to look at the facts and understand why we're having this conversation. It's necessary and it's needed, especially in our community. So yeah, Black communities and mental health. We know that Black people are 4 times more likely to be detained under the Mental Health Act than our white peers. 1 in 8 Black men, only 1 in 8 Black men with a mental illness actually receives treatment, and Black young men report the lowest rates of health-seeking behavior when it comes to mental health because of things like stigma and mistrust. And we have to take responsibility as a community because we are creating the cultures and the environment where these things continue to be an issue. So our hope is that this conversation today will start to change the narrative and change the trajectory so that our communities become safe places for our boys to start talking about what's going on in their head. Why do we need to start talking about conversations early? Because these can literally save lives. When boys grow up in communities and environments where they feel named and heard and respected, all of those things normalize the conversation about mental health. They reduce stigma, they build resilience, and they create foundation for lifelong well-being. Our communities are strong and gifted, and this is something that we can add to our community to make sure that, as well as entrepreneurship and faith, that we're protecting our young boys and men so that they don't end up in mental institutions or end up dying by suicide. So why? It's important because one of the things I've realized with these health conversations is that there's so much shame and avoidance, and we almost believe that, if we talk about it, then it's going to make it a bigger issue. That's not true. Talking about it doesn't make it more likely to happen, but not talking about it actually makes it more likely that there's going to be a significant impact. So this is part of the breaking of the stigma, and it's going to help you by giving you resources to be able to find groups like, Jet 42. Samson, you want to come in?
Yeah, and I think, thanks, Ayo. So I think this, again, just to start as you started, things like this are dear to my heart, mainly because, well, I'm a young-ish Black man, shall we say. I've also been a young Black boy, and I've seen all the different types and all the different situations. And I think now as an adult, and the work that I'm doing, especially at Jet 42 and other places, other spaces, I think I'm seeing a lot and experiencing a lot. I have a lot of stories and seen a lot of situations, and this early, picking it up as early as possible is super, super important. Obviously, it goes without saying that. Obviously, just sounds so obvious, and not even to drag it on. Like, I've seen situations and stories. Like, I've got a story of a young boy who's unfortunately locked up right now. And I think the time that I and some people came in contact with him, an incident had already happened, but there was a lot of shame from him to talk about the steps that it took for him to have actually been in that incident. He grew up in, no parents around, grew up in care and things like that. And when the situation occurred, he had been placed in a home, but this home had no heating. He wasn't living right, just wasn't living good. And he felt shame to be able to express it to people. So he was out at night and an incident occurred. But if we go back and that incident was incorrect and should never have done that. But if we go back and go through the past and see the steps of the situations that were around him, how everybody around him really just failed him. You know, if he had heating at home, he's someone who likes to be inside. You know, he's not out that night and that incident doesn't occur. So I'm not excusing that incident. I'm just saying that these steps, we've got to go back and look at it. Whenever we meet young people or even grown adults, sometimes we've always got to ask ourselves that question of what was the situation around them that contributed to the where they are now. And I think Ayo said something really important here, which I think we'll touch again a little bit later. And is this concept of shame. Shame is such a big, massive thing in our community, or at least in the communities that I've experienced and I've grown up in, you know, whether that be through different cultures, different faith factions, or even just growing up in your particular household. But I think just to bring it back so I don't go off on a tangent and get too ahead of myself, I think finding groups is important, finding spaces where people can talk and just be listened to so they don't make, you know, an incorrect decision, so we can develop them and train them to where before they're acting, they're actually thinking things through before they're making that decision.
I think that's why we're so grateful for Karen to create this platform to have the conversation, because it's going to be on YouTube for perpetuity, so people can just have the conversation and again normalize it. So
and continually have the conversation.
Yeah, exactly. 1 hour, you know, one weekend isn't going to be the thing that causes a solution. Especially, I think we were talking before this, something you were saying that often when you see somebody act out in as an adult, lots of things have happened to cause them to go down that road. So we need more than one intervention to help them to course correct.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what does it look to be mentally healthy? Somebody who is emotionally regulated, somebody who is responsible, somebody who's purposeful, connected to family, self-aware, reflective, healthy, helps seeking without shame, present, warm, and engaged. And if you're an adult looking at it and think, oh, that doesn't sound like me, then, you know, there's questions to be asked there. And on the journey that I've been in my own mental health and emotional health, there are times where I have had to challenge myself and say, I need to change. I need to, you know, speak to my brother, speak to my family, speak to my wife, speak to people, and make sure that I'm doing it without shame, because when you hide things, they just get bigger. What does somebody who is unhealthy look like? So what is it looks like somebody who doesn't know who he is beyond what he does. You know that I am a human being, not a human doing. A lot of men don't realize that. Somebody who measures their worth by performance and achievement. So if something happens and you don't perform, now you're not worth as much. Somebody who struggles with struggles to identify or express his emotion. Everything is angry or sad, but there's so much more in terms of our emotional palette. Somebody who finds it difficult to ask for help. Somebody who lives with unresolved anger, shame, or fear, and rather than have a healthy outlet, they use things like work, or dare I say church, or sport, or alcohol, or sex, or gaming, and all these things to have their head occupied so they don't have to deal with bigger issues. I like this picture here because it's important for us to remember that every broken man is still a broken boy on the inside. And the reason that they're still broken as a man is because they haven't dealt with that broken boy. And it doesn't start at adulthood, it starts earlier. So
and it even gets on that, it gets difficult, it tends to get difficult as you get older.
Yeah.
Because you're moving further away from what you see yourself as a boy. But if you don't focus on how to heal that young boy as a man, it just won't work.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I like to do is define terms. So when we say these things, what do we mean? So mental health is an overall psychological state about how we think, feel, and good. So you can think about it in the same way as you think about your physical health. So when you are feeling healthy, generally you're describing a positive or good physical health. And when you're feeling unhealthy, you're describing a negative physical health. Similarly, you can have good mental health and negative mental health. The reason it's important, because I think sometimes we intertwine the terms mental health and mental illness, and they're not the same. Mental well-being is feeling purposeful, connected and able to manage life's ups and downs. Because no matter what you do, pray, fast, go to church, do all the things that you do, go to therapy, none of those things are going to exempt you from the natural ebbs and flows of life. But well-being gives you the ability to cope. And mental illness is a diagnosable condition, as opposed to something that's just the natural ebbs and flows. We all feel happy. We all feel sad. We all feel fear. All of that is part of the normal human experience. But any of these things to an extreme can get to a situation of mental illness. Now, understanding emotional health, because that's a slightly different thing. So emotional health is feeling, expressing, and managing emotions in a balanced way. For example, a parent who talks through frustration rather than shutting down or shouting. Emotional regulation, that's the ability to pause, reflect, and choose a response. Samson said before that if we're not in a position where we can regulate, the thing you get is a reaction. You know, they're not even thinking about what's happening. And before, have you ever been in a situation where something happened before you know it, you've done or you've said or you wish that you could have taken it back? That's examples of dysregulation. So when feelings overwhelm or drives reaction, for example, explosive anger, shutting down, or risky behavior. So it's important that when we say these things, we know what we're talking about. So because we talked about every broken man is a broken boy who hasn't healed. Let's talk about it from the beginning. How boys become men. Ages from born to 5. The question that our boys are asking is, am I safe? And it's important for those of us who are caregivers to understand that's the fundamental thing that a boy till 5 is asking, am I safe? So it determines what kind of culture we should be creating for them. The things that we can encourage our boys to do, they need to express their feelings. How? Through play, toys, imagination. It's important for them to know how to responsibly seek comfort and building routines and explore emotional safety. Asking questions about feelings and things like that. So that's what the boy can do. Those of us who are caregivers, what can we do? You need to provide consistent, loving attention every day. Consistent being the word. I know for a lot of men, especially if you've grown up in a situation where you may not have had a father figure, there's a drive to do this and massive things and take it. Actually, our kids don't need, they would rather have us than the money. You know, kids spell love T-I-M-E. So being there and showing up is more important than any, Disney trip or anything like that. Respond sensitively to distress. And it's important that we recognize that I may have difficulty doing that if I haven't healed, because I may be dysregulated. Model emotional expression. Name your feelings. I remember the first time I told my children that I was scared of something. Their eyes were just wide, but again, we normalize, oh, daddy sometimes gets scared. So now, hopefully what that does is give them the license to express when they're scared. And see the child. We're so quick to see the behavior. Why are you doing that? What's going on? But not necessarily seeing the child behind the behavior. And Samson, you mentioned about the first 2 years.
Well, the research shows that those first 2 years are pivotal in a child's development, and how actually those early bonds and attachments that they develop literally are the blueprint for how they see life moving forward. It affects their relationships, their self-esteem, their emotional regulations that we're talking about. So it's really, really important. I myself was talking, and we've had many a conversation.
Yeah.
Even going back to the point of even, seeing a child before the behavior, but even talking about feelings. We have a lot of young boys, men, older men, however you want to call it, who don't understand the different range and spectrum of emotions that they can have. It sometimes, I know examples of many people. If I'm scared, I showcase that through anger. If I'm sad, I showcase that through anger. If I'm anything, I showcase that through anger. Because of how they've been, how they've existed, how the community and situations around them have created and molded them, anger tends to be that first emotional response. But you need to, in some ways, see beyond that and talk it through and go through that. And there are ways and steps to do that, to understand exactly what it is that they're trying to express, and understand that, it might be displaying itself as anger, but that's not what it is.
Yeah, exactly. So then we move on. Boys 6 to 11. And sorry, I should have said it at the beginning. This is a 40, 50-minute presentation that's trying to deal with a massive topic. We are not going to have the time to comprehensively deal with every single aspect of this topic. Hopefully what we're giving you is something that you can go away and do some of your own research about, and educate yourself, because one of the things I love about PAN and the PAN Health Hour is that there's a passing back of responsibility to the listeners. This is your life. These are your sons, your nephews, and we want to do everything we can to equip ourselves to make sure that we're doing the best for them. So between 6 and 8, the question that they're asking themselves is, am I capable? Can I do it? Now, there's lots of things that we can do to help to encourage that, but as long as we understand the reason why they're doing the things that they're doing, saying the things that they're saying, going the places that they go, and it's to answer the question, can I do it? So when they want to join a football team or do taekwondo or play tennis or whatever, that the fundamental internal question is, am I capable? So what the boys can themselves can do, try. We have to normalize trying, failing, trying again. They have to build friendships. We have to encourage them to develop the skills. Oh, I might want to go into this place and there's lots of people I don't know. Okay, well, let's build some friendships. We have to normalize asking for help. Practice positive self-talk, because you're actually talking to yourself all the time. And I think that depending on the culture and the family that you live in, it is possible to lean toward a negative self-talk. But rather than say, I can't, help them say, I can. So in our house, we say, we don't say I can't in the family. I can do it. If the answer is, can you? Or if the question is, can you? The answer is yes. That's what we've taught our kids. Share your feelings. Now, again, we have to be careful because of the situation that we are, and we want to make sure that our kids recognize who is a trusted adult. It's not everybody you share everything with, but there are people in your life that we can encourage this. And what can we do? Encourage effort over perfection. So the data suggests that when you say, well done, when a child does well in a test or well in football, it's not necessarily giving you the result that you might think it's given them. It might give them a sense that it's the achievement that gives them value. And they're not always going to get 100% on everything, especially, those in our community. You got 99? Who got 100? Has he got 2 heads? all this kind of stuff. But it's important that we recognize, because we know as adults, actually, it's the effort, it's the continued effort, it's the try again. So if we can get them to recognize, oh, well done for the effort. I really saw how hard you were working in that game. I saw how hard you were revising, rather than focus on the result. That's important. Validate their feelings. I understand that you are frustrated. How often, of those of us who are adults, or maybe we've done it to our kids, we've minimized what they're feeling. In my day, we didn't do that. We need to move away from that.
It's also, sorry, just to comment, it's also what we was talking about before, a completely different day and age now.
Yeah.
Everything that they're experiencing, a lot of the young people, is completely different from how we experience it. So the comparison is just completely false.
Yeah.
And extremely dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. Support social skills development through group activities and play, create safe spaces. And I think the phrase here, without judgment, is so important. As a parent, as a caregiver, as an uncle, as an auntie, your opinion weighs so heavily on our boys. They want to do well, they want to impress. And if we create situations where they feel judged, they're not then going to come and talk to us when they have real problems. Now, repair. Whoa, this is a really big, important one, because I am not perfect. We are not perfect. And if I am not careful, I will, well, not even if I'm not careful, I will show my humanity to my children. So it's important for me when I recognize that I've done that, I've made a mistake, or I've been dysregulated, to come back and say, oh, so I shouted this then. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry I overreacted. Can we talk about this and repair, rather than maybe some of the houses that we lived in where there was a shouting or there was, beats and, okay, your ice cream, rather than actually talking about what happened. And both Samson and I were talking about this before the presentation. Hugs for boys, it is so important. Counterintuitively,
So important.
There's data to suggest that boys need hugs more than girls need hugs. And we need to normalize it, because are we creating an environment where girls get, more physical affection than our boys because we're being rough and tumble, or get up, son? Boys need hugs.
And I think that and when we're talking about hugs, I don't mean a dap and a slap. I don't mean any other, however else you want to put it. I mean an immediate, serious, full hug that engulfs them. Because really and truly, look, my even the work we do at Jet 42 and others, we listen to the medical advice, but we're not medically informed, right? This is based on experience and learnings and research and training and actively being out there. And I can categorically tell you the difference in hugging and actually in that moment of the hug, seeing barriers drop down. I was talking before, it's quite easy to build up a defense. It's extremely easy. It's really, really difficult to break down the defense, and this is where, notes for adults, being extremely resilient comes in, because it will take more than double the effort to break down and get through. It's not because you've hugged someone one time, or you listened to them one time, or you said I love you that one time, that now they're just going to open up everything. Exactly. You're dealing with a lot. You're not even just dealing with whatever age this young person or this person is. You're dealing with anything that might have even come from the parent. Dealing with the outside, you're dealing with more than just how old they are. It's really, really important. Hugs are so. I'm not saying start hugging them every 5 minutes. Like, relax. Let's have sense. Let's have the sense. Yeah. I mean.
But it's important to recognize that boys need it.
Yes.
So 12 to 18. The question that these young men are asking is, who am I? Because everything at this stage is trying to dictate who they are. School is, friends are, social media, peer pressure, all of that kind of stuff. So it's important. And it's a natural question. So the young man at this stage is shifting his focus and his allegiances from family to maybe peers. And that's natural, that's normal. There's no need necessarily for that to be a clash. And we just have to understand that we have to create an understanding of who they are. I like the story of Moses in the Bible. Moses was a Hebrew, and he was adopted by Pharaoh's daughter, but was nursed by his mother. And one of the things that we can assume that his mom did is tell him, you're not one of these people. You're a Hebrew, because the Bible says that when he went out and looked at his brothers and saw one of them being oppressed by an Egyptian, and he felt empathy straight away.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have had it if he thought he was an Egyptian. So regardless of the culture, because I know for parents there can be a concern, or okay, all these influences that are telling my child who they are. No, you tell your child who they are. Sit them down and be consistent about it. So what can the young men do? Reflect on identity and values. They need to know who they stand for. Seek authentic connection and realize who friends are. No social media. There's significant amount of growing evidence to say that social media is not healthy for developing brains. It encourages comparison. And the thing about social media, it's somebody's highlight reel, so it's not real life. And not only that, is that the excessive use of screens gives the user dopamine without having to work for it. And dopamine, when you work for it, let's say when you exercise or when you do a football game or whatever, that's healthy for your brain. But dopamine without the effort is toxic. And the brain does not fully develop till 25. So it doesn't matter what the law says. At 18, this person's brain is not fully developed, but we have to help them, even though they may not necessarily see it as that. They need to engage in healthy risk taking because they need to know what it's like to try, fail, try again, and grow, and communicate honestly about feelings. Samson mentioned it before. Everything is anger. I think we can recognize that in our teenage boys. It is our job to help them understand. I don't think you're angry. I think you might be sad, or I think you might be scared. I think you might be disappointed, and giving and helping them get the vocabulary for it. Other things that we can do. So without judgment or ridicule, when someone comes and says, "This is how I feel," okay, let's talk about that. Avoid performance pressure. In certain communities, that's going to be
That's going to be difficult, man.
Difficult to do, but we have to recognize what we are doing to our young men by putting all of that on them. Model emotional honesty. This is how I feel. Let them know that vulnerability is a strength. The ability to say, I feel scared, I feel sad, I feel pressure. When you look at storms and you look at trees, this tree that stays stiff is the one that breaks. The one that has the ability to flow with the wind is the one that survives. We're all going to have storms in life.
And just on that point, I think that pressure word is so important. You know, a lot of the time people go into situations. I can't remember the statement. They were like, you know, before someone's, I don't know, doing a talk or doing something public, they'll say, "Oh, no pressure." You know, one of the things I constantly say, you might have heard it, I say it to other people, before they're about to do anything, I tell them, no, there's all the pressure.
Yeah.
There is pressure. Like, let's not shy away from the reality of things. Let's learn to deal with it. And remember, you are good enough, even with or without pressure. It doesn't matter, because you will just be who you are and move the same way.
Yeah. Again, to Samson's point, the thing about resilience is, my view is, resilience is a thing that you realize you had retrospectively. It's a product of the thing. Human beings, we are hardwired to avoid discomfort and pressure and to go towards comfort. But growth often happens in pressure and uncomfortable situations. So if you avoid the pressure, you avoid the growth. And there's a big, I think, epidemic of young men who are struggling with, I think, the psychological concept of failure to thrive. That kind of guy who's been playing games, or they're living in their parents' basement, they can't keep a job because either they have been cocooned from pressure from their parents, or they've actively avoided it. So they don't know how to deal with what is the normal pressure of life. And that's part of growing up. You know, we need to encourage healthy friendships, and we need to make sure that we're staying close and curious. One of the things that we were talking about before this is that intentional parenting is so important. You know, we need to make sure that we know what's happening in our children's life. Do you know who your friends, your child's parents, your child's friends are? You know, what they're doing with their time in their room. All of these things, like, I don't want to, you know, take a step back and feel like proper parenting is overbearing and I have to pick up my son from a mental institution in 10 years' time. No, parenting is involved. And it's important for us to recognize that, especially in our culture. This is how we've always done it. Let's not adopt the less supportive way of parenting that maybe society is telling us. It's important. Okay, so 18 to 25. The question that is being asked is, can I stand on my own 2 feet? So I know I'm safe. You know, I know I'm capable. I know who I am. And can I stand on my own 2 feet? So that's what's happening at this stage, and it's important for us that we encourage the standing up and facing up to the pressure, because dysregulation and an inability to do it looks like excessive gaming or escapism, difficulty maintaining, sustaining a relationship. All of that is evidence of somebody who hasn't had that internal fortification to say, no, you can do it, you know, you can do it. So what does a young man need to do? Build daily routines. actually, daily routines are more important than any fantastical thing that you can do in a moment. But this is the thing about human nature. We value intensity over consistency. And we forget that doing something small every day is actually more important to a successful life than doing something massive, important. And we need to help them understand that. Develop skills and competence to take on challenges. You know, seeking mentors. Mentors are such an important cheat sheet, if you will, for learning. There's going to be somebody in life that maybe has gone where you want to go or knows what you need to know. Seek that person out. Practice self-care and taking care of yourself, and be purpose and pursue purpose. It's really important that we encourage, that we normalize this language in our young men rather than oh, it's okay. Look, because what we want is the example of the emotionally, mentally regulated man at the beginning, somebody who is after something, who is stable, who is a friend, who knows how to seek help. All of those things happen by us encouraging men to do these things. What can we do in community? We can provide, again, emotional support without judgment. That phrase comes out so many times. Encourage independence gradually and confidently. One of the things that my wife and I have agreed on is that in terms of independence, my children will always be ready for it before I am. So as a parent, I have to intentionally give them independence whilst I feel uncomfortable. Because if I wait for me to feel comfortable, it's going to be too late. And we model that. So in terms of when they can go to the shop by themselves, when they can ride a bike around all of these things, they're going to be ready for before I'm ready for it. So I have to be intentional about that in terms of giving them responsibility, because that's how they grow. And if I can protect them so much that I'm underdeveloping them, I mean, I'm not doing them any favors. So recognize anxiety and fear behind avoidance behaviors. There's a book I'll talk about later called He's Not Lazy. And basically the theme of it is that there are young men in our circle who it looks like he's not trying anything or whatever. But what's happening is it's not that they don't care, they care so much that they're avoiding the difficult thing, because if I don't try, I can't fail.
Let me jump in with this. I think that is one of the biggest things, and it is difficult to be able to spot. And I think the important thing for us as actions is whenever you see something or you're listening to someone or you're seeing them do something, I think one of our first thoughts need to be stop and not look at just what they're doing, but actually ask ourselves, why would they be doing that? And go through the scenarios. I'll tell you a quick story of this. Is a few years ago. Someone would come into where we were, and in the heat of heat, we're always wearing a jumper. Always wearing a jumper. And, people go, why are you doing it? And attacking. And it wasn't even me. It was one day my colleague was noticing and said, doesn't that feel strange? And people were like, yeah, just like, oh, they're just, the kids are just like that. But we were querying it. And then eventually we, instead of talking about it, we just sat down and had conversations, just got to know the person a little more, speak to them about their, their home life. And it was over time to reveal the whole reason they're doing that is because they were essentially like self-harming. So they're wearing that so nobody noticed, right? So the only reason I'm saying that is because sometimes what a young person or someone is doing in that moment isn't necessarily what they're trying to say. You might get situations where people are like, oh, they don't talk. It's a statement I hate when they say men don't talk or boys don't talk. I think people need to understand to either listen to the silence and listen what's not said as opposed to what is just said, and also break down what is said. But it is difficult. It takes, like we said before, it takes resilience, but also takes repetition. Constantly showing up and constantly being there, and maybe constantly even having a statement. I know growing up, maybe similar to Ayo, there's words that my mum constantly said to me that to this day I remember. because she said it almost every single day. Now let's make those words, like when I'm with some of the young people, I have certain statements that I say to them all the time. I say to them consistently all the time. I'm not afraid to be annoying to them. I am not afraid to be annoying to them because I'm not here to be their friend. It's not what we're trying to do here. That's not our aim. And I'll be annoying because at that point when they remember those statements and they make those better choices, that's when it all, you know, it all comes to a head. That's what we understand all the reason for. You know, we want these people to be as good as and as great as they can be without us there. We don't want to make it so they're constantly dependent on us. That is not what we want to do.
Thank you. Okay, so again, the point that we're making is that when you see an emotionally or mentally dysregulated man, it didn't start there. It started as unsupported boy, feeling unseen, feeling safe, and him building up all of these walls to keep that boy safe. And then that boy becomes a teenager. He was uncertain because nobody told him who he was, and nobody taught him how to deal with his emotions. Doesn't have a language for pain. That becomes a dysregulated young man. He doesn't know how to take no. The low-hanging fruit is anger, or the pain that he has not dealt with is so significant that he's just doing things to numb the pain, the drugs or the gaming or the whatever. And then we have somebody who is a grown-up who looks like an adult, but is still emotionally a child. Everything is a reaction rather than a response because the wounded boy is still present on the inside. So it's difficult because time is against us. But just as a quick topic, we talked before about don't just look at the thing that's happened. So the things you might see are anger or emotional withdrawal or risk taking, reckless behavior, substance misuse. And you know, we have said in society these things are bad. I'm not saying that they're good. I'm just saying that's what we said in society. But we're not asking ourselves the question, well, how did we get here? Why is this person doing this? And we forget that sometimes, just like Samson was alluding to, the silence is somebody's inability to talk about childhood neglect or emotional abandonment. There's unprocessed trauma there. There's identity wounds and shame wounds. There's been an absent or emotionally absent father or mother. Are they dealing with racism or racial trauma? You know, all of these things might be the things that they don't feel equipped or safe to say. And real healing can begin when we address the root of it. Because we can say, stop doing this, stop doing that, but it doesn't address the cause.
No.
What can we do as the village? We all know the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child. So what can we do? We can emotionally validate our boys and young men. Honor their feelings without minimizing them or dismissing. That's a big thing. How often have you heard or said to somebody, that's not important, that's not a big deal, you know, be a consistent presence. Be sturdy, because just like Samson said, I'm not here to be a friend in that sense. My job is to be a parent. My job is or an uncle or an older man in somebody's life.
Yeah.
And as a consequence of that, there's going to be lines that I am going to draw and police because I love you. Not because, in fact, the lines are evidence of the love, not evidence of the lack of the love. And, you know, maybe right now you don't understand it. Okay. But I know that just like as I became a parent, there are things I understood about manhood that I would never have understood beforehand. You know, hold boundaries with love, because I don't believe that making our children boundaryless is helpful for them. Psychologically, it's really scary because they think that they're flying the plane of their life. They don't want to be in the cockpit. They need an adult to say, no, this is where we're going. This is how we're going to do that. Encourage emotional freedom and model what it is, those of us men, what it means to be a man. It's not just masculine attributes. Can I be a nurturer? Can I be a poet? Can I be soft as well as strong? You want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in because some of the work that we do with Jet 42 with the Young Black Men it's all about that peer-to-peer support. So it is about creating a community of like-minded individuals who are all different, can come to a space and then they can express. Now, it just means that they don't have to say things that's already known. So we all start from a base level of understanding, and then we're able to build on it. But that peer-to-peer support is so important because they're getting conversations with people in their age group and then people older.
Yeah.
And then we're all helping and healing each other. I think one of the biggest things for me about doing this work and this world I'm in is that I didn't even understand the impact it will have on me as an adult with the young people. And how we actually both help each other. And one of the key things, and going back to a previous slide, is, you know, you want to go out there, you want to help someone, maybe you want to help your child or someone, you know, a friend's kid, or, you know, you work in this space. And I think the important thing is about even being open first. Like, I think we expect so much from people when you're going to quote unquote help them or do whatever. That's just the idea of taking. You have to be willing to give and constantly give. And with that in yourself, that could be difficult for yourself. So you have to understand and know you've got to go through your own process to give, to be able to help. You know, it is back and forth. It is never just a one-way street. It is this idea of this, you know, back to what I was talking about. As a village, as a community, we almost need to do things and get back to how we once were as a people and where we're from. You know, a lot of the things here, let's face it, we are, you know, I grew up here. We see a lot of things for a Eurocentric lens. But also when I go back, when I was in my household, it'll be a very particular tribal Nigerian lens. And there's elements of that which I think will resonate with many people on this call, many people beyond that. And we need to mix and match, and we need to bring those things back we need to bring back that community, because it's not just you, Ayo, and your wife raising your kids. The people and the friends you've chosen to be around them are super important, because they'll be looking at them.
100%.
It's the people that you bring into your household, the people that you're on the phone with. Well, what do you say? Kids don't kids do listen, but they're not just listening, they're watching.
Absolutely.
And they're watching it all.
I mean, for just by way of example, so my wife and I are very intentional about the people that we have in our children's life. And for instance, I call Samson my brother because there's certain people I have called intentionally and said, my son is now 12, he's 13, he's 14. He needs men in his life that are not me. And again, I've already said that I trust how these people are from their ethics and their faith and from their morals and whatever. So I know that if I can leave them with these men, and they're going to continue the trend of everything that we've been teaching. But like, I had the explicit conversation with my brothers, with Samson, with some other people, and said, look, Ezekiel is 14 now, so I need you to call him. You know, I need you to spend time with him. So he knows that he has a village of men that he can call on. So what else can we do? So the power of the example, just like you said, they may not listen, but they will copy. So don't be a do as I say, not as I do person. That's not a good example. Heal for them. If you parent from an unhealed place, often it's just going to perpetuate the trauma that you have dealt with. And give them what you did have, especially those of us who grew up maybe with a lower socioeconomic background. We're so focused on, I'm going to give them this, I'm going to give them that, I'm going to give them this, and we forget to give them what we actually did have. The community, the love, the work ethic, all of those things helped us become the people that we are today. Create a culture. Resilient children grow up in a house where there is structure, where there are shared experiences, and where there are stated values. Not just we'll see. No, in this house, we talk about emotions. We forgive. We work hard. We clean the toilets. Whatever it is, we state it. We don't let them have to figure it out and learn to apologize. Those of us who are, so I'm a Christian. Those of you who are Christians, and for me, it's really important that my children grow up to be Christians. There was a study that was done, and one of the biggest indicators for adult Christians who started off in a Christian household to maintain the faith was having parents who apologized, not parents who prayed or fasted, or parents who learned how to apologize. Okay, I mean, for time's sake, I think we may have to skip this slide just because there's so much else to cover, but we know that families are different. So, you know, there's going to be a nuance to the co-parenting dynamic and the single parenting dynamic. I would say that for single mothers, one of the things that we're going to have to, what we would encourage is an intention about finding male figures that your son can look up to and interact with. For those of us who thought that the Bible doesn't talk about things like emotions, well, you'd be incorrect. Jesus was he was so in touch with his emotions that the two examples that I can give are when he knew that he was going to raise up Lazarus, he cried. Why did he cry if he knew that he was going to raise him up? Because he recognized he was present with what everyone else was doing. And in the Garden of Gethsemane, I wonder what would happen if Jesus didn't release his anxiety and concern about the cross, because the Bible says he cried out with loud groanings, and after that he said, "Let not my will but your will be done." What would have happened if he didn't release it? David was a warrior. You wouldn't have tested him in battle, but him and his warriors, the Bible says on multiple occasions that they wept. They wept when people died. They wept when their wives were taken away. They were in touch with their emotions. It wasn't one or the other. It was their masculinity wasn't compromised by an awareness of their emotional state. And Elisha being exhausted and tired. All of these things, the Bible, my opinion is that science, whether it be biology or psychology, is catching up with the Bible. The answers have been there the whole time. So what else can we do? Create safe emotional environments, educate ourselves as to what are the early signs of problems, you know, have structured mentorship programs, and invest in things like skill building activities. Yeah, I'm rushing because of time. So create genuine belonging spaces, promote physical and mental health. Physical health is really important. Model positive masculinity. You know the reason why the manosphere has been able to capture a generation of young men is because the other men, we haven't been loud enough about what real masculinity is.
Yes.
So they've been sold a lie. So that means that those of us who are men need to step up and say, no, it's like this. And when you watch inside the manosphere, the thing that I thought that was really interesting is that none of them had great relationships with their fathers. I think you know, it's another topic for another day, but fatherhood, I think, is the cure for the manosphere. Offer leadership and responsibility. So what can it look like when there's trouble? So with being withdrawn is one big issue. Irritability, mood changes, school difficulty, or even a reluctance to go to school. There was an issue. Emotional outburst, and not just I don't want to go to school, like a consistent, you know, if something happened, are they being bullied? All these things are because, again, an intentional and involved parent will be curious. Emotional outbursts, anger, tears, and sudden reactions, moderate concern, a feeling of hopelessness, and nothing gives them pleasure, nothing to look forward to, increased risk taking, social isolation, just playing games, not talking to anybody, no poor sleep, and disruptive sleep patterns. When is it a crisis? When there is talk about or evidence of self-harm or self-injury, suicidal thoughts or behavior, severe aggression. And these are the times that it's a crisis. And what we're trying to say is that prevention is better than cure. Obviously, there's resources around when it is a crisis, but we don't want to get there. We want to provide our boys and young men with the tools not to get into crisis. Where can we get help? GPs, child and adolescent mental health services, NHS talking therapy, mental health challenges. Like there's lots of information online, and you know, Natasha, if you can put in the chat, Khan has some special resources that again are geared culturally specific to the Caribbean and African community. We need to model what it is to be a man, and what do we want it to look like at the end. So self-awareness, purposeful, responsible, connected, compassionate, courageous, and authentic. That's what it means. That's the goal. When you see a 2-year-old boy, a 3-year-old boy, a 5-year-old boy, a 15-year-old boy, everything that we're doing in that boy's life is to get him to this point. Now, again, I'm just going to put these on. These are going to be on, this video is going to be on YouTube, so you can screenshot it. These are some Instagram sources where I think that they're really, really good. So Samson and myself are on there. Dr. Russell Ledet is talking to teens, and a lot of the other ones are talking to teens and parents. There's information on YouTube as well. So again, I'll just leave it on so you can do a screen grab. Especially when you're watching it live or when you're watching it on YouTube. There are lots of resources like books. I talked about He's Not Lazy before. So again, there's lots of men who, again, they have what looks to be a failure to thrive. But what's happening is that they care so much that the prospect of failure is too much. So they don't even try. There's Dr. Joel Tudman, The Fight to Find Yourself, moving from uncertain to unstoppable. He talks about his emotional journey when in his 40s to figure out who he was. Jocko Willink, The Way of a Warrior Kid. All of these things are, again, building resilience and a forward-thinking, progressive young man. I think Jason Wilson is probably above the rest in terms of his work with young people and getting them to go from a state of emotional incarceration, which is what he talks about, what a lot of men is, and to become the man the moment demands. So his book, Cry Like a Man, focuses on the fact that, so one of the things we say to young people is men don't cry. And we have all of these misleading mantras, and we forget that God designed our tears to release stress hormone. But actually, that's why you feel better after you cry. Now, if we teach boys and young men not to cry with tears, then he says that they cry in other ways. Yeah. That is the reason why they misbehave and all these behaviors, because we haven't taught them to emotionally release where they're coming from. There are some films, the Inside Out 2 is a really good one, Mick Robinson's Puss in Boots. These, again, they help people think about where they are emotionally and what's happening. It's good for parents too. And I think it's good for parents to watch with kids. I didn't grow up with parents who watch films with me, but I've normalized that with my children. Encanto is a great film about value and family. Anton Fisher is a bit more mature, but again, a real important film in terms of self-discovery. Aquila and the Bee, about achievement. And what we noticed is that I was looking for films, but a lot of these, they're not about men. So again, we need to start creating these kinds of things so that we can see ourselves, our young boys can see themselves on screen. There's the Karate Kid and there's Exhibiting Forgiveness. So again,
I would encourage everyone to watch Exhibiting Forgiveness. It really deals with that, the lineage of passing trauma to a child, the child having to grow up, have their own family and not dealing with that trauma, and then fighting against passing that trauma onto their own child whilst trying to heal themselves without understanding how to heal themselves. And it's centered from a Black man's perspective. It's a really, really good film.
Now, what else do we have? So, practical things. I mean, we kind of touched on this before. Again, I'm aware that it's 12 o'clock, so I'm just going to read a slide on, then we can go back and look at it. And the final reflection that we wanted to leave you guys with. Every broken man has a broken boy still inside him. And I think that picture is just so powerful. And rather than look at just the behaviors, let's ask ourselves, what happened to him? What was around them? And yes, so those are our, if you wanted to get in touch with either Samson or myself, these are our Instagram handles. And yeah, again, it's difficult because in an hour, how much can you cover? But
there's so much.
Yeah, exactly.
One point I will add in, just something I wanted to make sure get across, and I'll make it quick in the essence of time, is even going through and addressing things with a young person or a man. It's not just going all guns blazing. Sometimes, like I call it like just adjacent assistance. Like if you notice someone has, I don't know, their clothes are not ironed, rather than ridicule or pinpoint or go direct because of the sake of embarrassment, have a session where you include everybody and you talk about, listen, I want to show you like how I iron my clothes, or talk about something. So you're directly helping them, but you're helping everybody, but you're not pinpointing. and letting them live with that shame. But now they're learning.
Yeah,
We have
exactly.
many incidents like that, situations like that, where we've done things where we call it like adjacent assistance to them, which actually helps them because they know who it's for, but they also now feel included. And then everybody can develop and learn together.
Yeah.
So then moving forward, peer-to-peer support means we all know this, so we can now all help each other to move forward. So if their friend notices something, it's like, we know this, I was there, remember?
Yeah.
We want to encourage that because again, we're not around all the time.
Yeah. All right. But yeah, thank you for the time. Dr. Sapong, I believe
Yeah.
we're going to get some questions ready.
Right. Thank you very much, guys, for such an illuminating presentation. I think I've always suggested that Khan should have some talks that are repeated every year, and I'd nominate this one for that. Maybe every year with revisions and updates would be very nice. I think eventually, at the heart of all this is communication. Communicate with the children, the boy, and the girl, of course, because remember, this applies to girls as well. We've only chosen today to focus on the boys because the statistics are that glaring. Educate yourself as a parent and perhaps even as a grandparent as well, because I look at a lot of your slides and I was beginning to feel that I hadn't been such a great parent after all. I could see so many gaps. Maybe I'll have a chance to do it with my grandkids, something like that. But it's education is very, very important.
I think it's worth mentioning, Dr. Sapong, that it's never too late.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
for instance, those of us who are parents, so those of us who are adults, parents and have children, I want you to imagine your dad coming to you and saying, I want to talk to you about what happened. You know, I think there's things that could have been better. I imagine even in your 30s or 40s, it would still mean something to you.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's ever too late.
Yes, and also what came up quite strongly in your presentation was the role of mentoring and the role of the community
Yeah.
in bringing up the child. So I think we all have to be mindful of the role we play in our friends, brothers and sisters, children's upbringing and worldview, emotional awareness, and all of that. Yes, I think the last thing I'll say before we go to questions, because we've got a few, is that all of this reminds me of Whitney Houston and The Greatest Love of All. If you listen to the first few lines, yes, children are our future, teach them well, let them lead the way, show them all the beauty they possess inside. Anyway, we'll stop there and we will.
I never knew you were such a fan. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I thought you were going to sing it.
Nah. Right. So, question number one: how can you know men who look mentally stressed but kind of do not show it? How can you pick up signs of stress in young men very quickly?
I think so. To be quick, so I won't go through everything. Everything is known. So like we understand people are different and people will show things differently. I think specifically to the question, if you think the ones who don't show it, I think I tend to be like that as well. And I think it's about consistently showing up and not making it obvious. You know, if you feel this person might be stressed, don't go tell them you look stressed, because sometimes their first thing is like, I'm not stressed. What are you talking about? Right? So there could be resistance there. In fact, do the things, show up, cool, go out, go for a walk. I cannot express. I'm not saying nature's like the be all and end all, but it's important to go outside with them, go on walks. There's so many groups, you know, specifically in Manchester that are walking, hiking groups, getting into nature. There's new ones like Beyond the Window coming up. There's the Black Girls Hike. There's the Mandem meetups. There's so many different of these factions which we can place down and put down, which you can talk to, get to know, and there's spaces that curate it for men, for women, for Black people, brown, all of these different type of things. So I think to wrap it up, I would just say, don't make it obvious and just go, oh, you look stressed. Be there, talk to them, and don't force the issue.
Okay. Now, the next one is talking about the presence of male mentors in the young Black man's life. Now, where does one find a father figure? Where does one find a mentor when they don't have a father figure in their lives?
That's a great question. And I think, again, it's indicative of where society is now. So it's a very relevant question. I think it's back to the fact that parenting is intentional. And we have to recognize the value of the male figure. So also, yes, we have to grieve the fact that maybe the biological dad isn't there. But we have to then, okay, so how can I be intentional about finding somebody? So is it, do you have a brother? Do you have a cousin? Do you have an uncle? Are there people in church? Are there
in your community?
Is there a football group or a martial art? So I think that if it's not something that's readily available, actively seeking it, and obviously those of you who are praying, pray, God, please bring men into my son's life who will be a positive role model for it. But I think it's just being intentional. So for instance, there are things that maybe because of the fact that I am me and I'm not every man. That's why even I'm trying to be present in my son's life. I'm actively seeking other men who have other qualities than I have and say, please, you are part of my village, and I've gone and sought them out. So not like just come to my house and we'll see. No, explicitly the conversation is, I need you to call. I need you to.
That's the key point. That is the key point when you're going out to find these or talk to people. Being explicit about what you're there to do.
Yeah,
I think is the key thing.
Now it says, my 15-year-old won't talk to me about anything anymore. Is this normal?
So the short answer is yes. The short answer is yes.
Laugh at the question. That's not laughing at.
Yeah. The short answer is yes. So I think it's one of those things, So those of us who don't have 15-year-olds yet, it is our responsibility to create an environment where we talk. But just like Samson was saying, often when as parents we are realizing that this is happening, we come in hot and heavy. Come on, talk to me. Yeah. And that is not necessarily helpful because by this stage they've already put up a wall. So for instance, one of the things that somebody taught me about is, because again, culturally, your kids come home, how was school? Fine. You ask them closed questions, they give you a closed answer because they don't want to have the conversation so they can move on. So do you have an opener? What did you eat today? There's ways in which that you can educate yourself and maybe some phrases and stuff. And if I'm honest with you, one of the things that we're not being honest about from a parenting point of view is that I don't have the same interests as my son.
That's a big thing.
So therefore, I have nothing to talk about. So for instance, what does he like?
Mm-hmm.
Have you spent the time to educate yourself? Does he like games? I know you don't like games, but have you spent your time figuring out, okay, he likes this game. Let me figure out what this game is about. He likes Formula One. He likes jiu-jitsu. Okay. So now I can ask him a question and he might even be like, huh? What did you learn about it? But at least it's because by the time he's got to not talking, lots of things have happened. So there's not going to be one pill, one solution, one time. It's going to be over a period of days, weeks, maybe months, maybe years, where you can reverse and normalize him talking to you, whilst recognizing that, again, it's a natural thing.
It takes time.
Teens, what they're doing is they're naturally pulling away from their parents. That's normal. So we have to, balance that.
Okay. Now it says, how do we get our statutory sector, including schools, to to understand that we are not all the same, and that we, Black organizations, need to be resourced to provide culturally and religiously safe services. We consistently experience inappropriate treatment and the trauma throughout generations. I'm not sure how
That
close.
is a big question.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm
That
not
is,
sure how that closely relates to the topic we're talking about, but hopefully you can
I,
catch some light
yeah,
on.
I think I understand the premise of it. I think one, there's not going to be a straight answer that you're going to get in the next 30 to 40 seconds that's
Yeah.
going to answer such a question. But understand the premise. And I think it's about these groups and factions that are around and not doing things in isolation or singular, doing things together, finding your tribe and coming together. And then maybe you've got to go to those schools or go to these factions, go to these spaces with a group. And the basics, you have to be specific, you have to be organized. Like there's certain things you have to do and model consistently. But I kind of think don't be afraid to do things yourself in your own community, find these groups or create these groups. Maybe you probably have friends or people around you in the community who are probably extremely like-minded, but nobody's really taking that first step between yourselves. And it needs someone to take that first step.
Okay.
I constantly have conversations with Io, we have conversations with so many people. And we've got so many ideas. We've got so much. I guarantee everybody in there in this chat has a ridiculous amount of wealth of resources and knowledge. But how many times do we all come together and swap it? How many times do we share and swap? There's, fears in play. We ourselves and adults, we're dealing with everything we come with as well.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I would just say just find those groups, but that's a much bigger.
Yeah. Can I just normalize that? Can I just add on? I don't have this something said. I think we should normalize being involved in terms of the school. So maybe because of business and working still feel like, oh, so for instance, my opinion is that I lend my children to the school to let them educate them about things that I want the school to educate them about. But the education of my child is my responsibility. And if I feel that the school is doing something that is not aligned with my values, there's a conversation that we're going to have, so normalize it. Because sometimes we're even concerned about being perceived as bully or whatever. I'm just saying that doesn't matter to me. I've made the choice that my child's development is of utmost priority. And if that causes you to view me a certain way, no problem. But I'm still going to come in and have a conversation because maybe you don't know, teacher, head of year, well, maybe the things that you don't know, but what I'm not going to do is not use my autonomy. You're going to hear from me
Exactly.
if you need to.
And there's loads of people in Manchester. There's loads of groups in Manchester. None that come to mind to shout out, but I do want to shout someone out. There's a woman in Manchester, Angeli. If you know her, contact her, or don't bombard her. But she's got a lot of insight and can point people in good directions as well. Very well versed.
I'll put the last two questions together.
Yeah.
And then hopefully we can wrap up. It's been very, very, very good. There's a distinction between Black African and Black Caribbean parenting and how Black boys are raised. We see the data differences in terms of schooling experiences, criminality, etc. Is there any comment on this? Now, in addition to that, somebody also says, some years ago, I heard of a trend where local Black bullies demanded money from Black boys in certain estates. Is this still happening?
I mean, I guess I'll talk from a personal experience, right? The last question, local Black. I mean, I don't know. There's good and bad everywhere happening. It probably is still happening. I don't know what community that is, but there's things to do around to help that. But the distinction between the Black African and Black Caribbean, I understand that. I heard a lot about that growing up, experienced a lot about that growing up. My heritage is Nigerian. I think we understand the idea of Black as a concept, the word is not real. I hope we understand it further. You can do the research. The idea of black is not, it's not a real thing. You know, it's created part of the transatlantic slave trade, etc., etc. Right? So we are just different people, and we have different understandings, and people are different. I don't want to minimize that point, right? But I also don't want to use that as an excuse. Now, naturally, there are differences. The same way IO parents in his household will probably be different from his brothers who are raised in the exact same household will parent their kids. People are different. I don't think we need to start getting into the whole idea of the difference between Black African and Black Caribbean. We need to focus on the points that we need to raise our kids and heal ourselves as individuals and what we do, and come together as a community with your neighbor, with other like-minded people like that. Like, I understand the data and the separation, but sometimes I'm not a big fan of data that constantly looks to constantly divide and separate and create conversations that can just be distracting from actually what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I think looking forward and going forward, we need to look at ourselves as Black people, full stop. I think that will make a big difference, rather than comparing the attitudes of Black Caribbeans with Black Africans.
Yeah, because I've seen it all. I've seen the I won't even go into my life history, but I've seen it all from everywhere. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was the second question?
The second question was specifically about Black bullies on some estates demanding money from local.
I wanted to address that because again, it's to do with like statistics and stuff. You have to recognize that for some people, the trauma of their experience is such that there's no love for themselves. So if you don't love yourself,
yeah,
you see yourself in other people, maybe that's the reason why there's a target on that person as well. I had an analogy. Let's say I'm in a gang and somebody in my gang gets hurt or whatever, and I'm going to somebody else's gang. I don't know who did it, but I'm going to go to somebody's area to figure out who did it. I'm going to be able to recognize the difference between the normal population and the gang because that person looks like me. So there's a degree to which all the aggression and stuff could it be maybe I'm not happy with who I am and I'm targeting it at other people, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. Sorry, go on.
No, because I think there's some issues with self-love, some self-hate in society, but there's also the statistical thing of like, if I'm around Black people and I'm dysregulated, the people I'm going to rob are Black.
Sometimes it's not even just that. That's who is one. You got to look at what is even the population and makeup of that community as well. Like that's sometimes just the reality of it. But sometimes there's fear.
Yeah,
a lot of these young people, trauma. My situations growing up, a lot of people have PTSD. You know, a lot of people are fearful. So it's a case of like, I will do something to you before you do something to me.
Yeah,
I know the idea of this Black individual or whatever, this person in my area might do certain things. Like, I think there are a lot of nuances around it. But again, it just goes back to what we were saying. We're dealing with things, and what was that secure attachment in those first 2 years, and then what has been their upbringing. It's not necessarily them. Let's not focus on them doing the bad things. Like, what's the environment? Who are the people around them that they even exist in that way? And let's work backwards. So it might still be happening, but that's just, you know, obviously we need to look at the situation as well, but there's a lot more around it that we need to delve into. So yeah.
All right, gentlemen, I think we have overrun 1 hour, and for good reason, of course. I think it's time to call it a day, and I will pass on to Adebimpe from Khan, who will give us some closing messages. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. It's been most worthwhile. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone that have joined us today. And I want to believe you've got value from today's session. Just look for my slide and I can present what I have. Yes. Please let me know if you can see my screen and I can start presenting. Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Ayo. Yeah, I'm not gonna copy what Dr. Ayo and Mr. Samson and have all said. I want to believe you've all got value from this session. You've taken notes, and then let's all practice. As a mom myself, I've got 2 boys, and I've got so much value and things I will be putting in motion myself. So, to everybody that have joined us on Zoom or over the YouTube or other platform, thank you so much for joining us today. And to everyone that sent in their question as well, thank you so much. We've all learn from your questions as well. So so I'm just going to start presenting my slide. So next week we're going to be having Dr. Danielle Motel. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. She'll be joining us next week talking about from donor to patient in terms of blood matters. And also our health hour takes place every week, so we hope you can join us again either on Zoom or on other platforms as well. Okay, now we're having our Windrush as well taking place in 2 weeks. Our usual place, Alexandra Park in Manchester. So if you've not yet signed up to be one of the attendees, please do that. You can use the screen. And if you are a business owner, organization looking for a platform to promote your service, your services, charity, especially with the discussion we've had today to do with boys. If you're an organization that run, session for boys, it would be lovely to have you there so that people in the community can get to know what you do and how you support these young boys in the community. Also on the Windrush as well, we'll be having tournaments, and we hope you can all come in, bring the boys, we're talking about boys today, and I feel like everything is in alignment. So bring the boys to come see other boys within that group age, come and play and take part as well. So if you're interested, you can email us as Windrush Celebration or events at Cannes as well, so that we can know how you want to get involved in the football tournament. Also, we're still on the matter of Black health legacy. So we are doing some research in terms of, illnesses around the Black people. So please, if you're interested, would like to take the survey, please do the use the QR code on the session if you have your phone on you, and just please take part. But if not, if you want to find out more information about it, kindly send us an email at research@can.org.uk. Your involvement will help us to be able to, work around the health issue that the Black and Caribbean people are facing within the UK and outside as well. Safe step as well. So this is where we're talking about sexual health, how you feel comfortable and accessibility for all. So this is directly for everyone, Black, African, Caribbean, Latin Americans, and other community around Lambeth, South Park, and Lusium, I mean, that's in London. And so also, if you want to take part, want to get involved in any ways, please use the email as well, team@safestep.london. We'll be looking forward to hearing from you, or use the telephone number on the screen as well and give us a call. Yeah, neighborhood summer health check as well. This is taking place, I believe, in 2 weeks, if not next year. I think next week, yeah. So we hope you can all join us at the venue. It's taking place at the Gotten Hop, not far, depending on where you're coming from. There will be lots of check to be done: blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar, and HIV, and every other things will be taking place as well. We'll be providing you with hot drinks. We hope the weather is going to be good, so we can all have a wonderful day. And also, we are recruiting for stall people within this health organization. So if you're interested and you would like to take part as well, please email Fabiola at can.org.uk, or also at events@can.org.uk. We would like you to take part. So everyone is welcome. Yeah, and that's come to the end of my slide. So once again, thank you to everyone that joined us, and we look forward to seeing you next week, where we'll be talking about blood health.
And thank you, Dr. Ayo. Thank you, Samson and Adibimpe, Dr. Sapong. This session took a lot of people to put together, and we just want to thank you for your contributions, your time completely, voluntarily being here for us and for our community. We really, really appreciate your advocacy and support. I'll see you all next week.
That's our time for today. Whether you joined us on Zoom, Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, thank you for making the Health Hour part of your Saturday. We hope today's session gave you the right dose of health wisdom that you can share with your friends and family. When we share knowledge, we strengthen our entire community. Mark your calendar. Next Saturday, same time. Got a topic in mind? We want to hear from you at health@can.org.uk. Health Hour, hosted by the Caribbean and African Health Network.